our Women in Tech Forum. We appreciate you joining us today, and we hope that everyone is continuing to stay safe and, of course, sane during this time of crisis, and definitely a time for much needed change in this world. I see a lot of new participants here today, which is wonderful, so thank you. And I want to tell you a little bit about Silicon Valley Forum and kind of what we do. So Silicon Valley Forum is a 37-year-old nonprofit organization, and we support the startup and technology ecosystem. We organize over 70 programs and events per year, and in 2015 launched our largest Women in Tech initiative, which is our annual 2-day Women in Tech Festival. This year, it is being held on November 13th and 14th, so please mark your calendars. And you can find more information on that event and how you can participate by going to our website at siliconvalleyforum.com. While you're there, we would love for you to sign up for our newsletter so you can be in the loop on all the initiatives and programs and events that we organize. If you are interested in speaking, collaborating, or partnering with us on an event, please let me know in the chat box, and I'll make sure to get back to you sometime after the program. All right, so let's get ready for today's program. The program today is Fearless Global Women, and we have really a truly impressive lineup of speakers on this panel. I am just wowed that we were able to get these 4 amazing women. I, for one, am prepared to learn from these incredible leaders and also be inspired by the stories that shaped who they are today. And with that, I'm going to turn this over to our moderator, Connie Guglielmo, who is the editor-in-chief of CNET, and for me, another fierce woman that I truly admire. So Connie, back to you.
Yeah, thank you so much for hosting this session, having me be part of it. Thank you to all the women who have joined, and I'm seeing from the chat window from all over the country and from Santiago, Chile. Somebody just logged in. That's amazing and fabulous. I am the editor-in-chief of CNET, which is the world's largest consumer tech site, and I'm thrilled that a woman runs the world's largest consumer tech site, and that I have a very diverse staff there that I've helped build in my 5 years there. Just a minute of introduction about me. I have been a tech reporter here in Silicon Valley for over 25 years. I'd like to tell people I started as a very small child. I have worked at a variety of tech publications, MacWeek, Upside, Wired, Bloomberg, Forbes. So I've seen all aspects of the tech industry, from the startup and creative mentality that people bring to the companies that they work on, to the business side of things while I was at Bloomberg and Forbes. And I now manage a global team of reporters around the world, and it's an interesting time to be a reporter. And the lines between what is reporting and advocacy are a big topic of discussion that we're having even among the team. And how you bring fairness, not just to the topics that you choose, but to how you approach your coverage and make sure that you include multiple voices. And I say that because I am the child and a daughter of immigrants, and I really appreciate the specific challenges that newcomers to the US have to face. My mother is a very smart businesswoman, and when I was growing up, I was her voice, not because she was not capable of sharing her thoughts and ideas, but because her accent was dismissed by many. And that has stood with me. And, you know, I talk to my mother every day, and now I'm like her tech support person. No, Mom, that's how you launch YouTube on your iPad. Turn the camera. But having a voice is very powerful, but making sure people hear it and recognize the power of that voice. So that's why I'm very honored to be hosting this panel featuring some women who have managed to have a voice in the tech industry, which we all know has a little bit of a problem recognizing that women especially have a valuable and important role to play. They know it, we all know it, it's just convincing some other people. And they're going to take their time today to share some of their insights as they've had to manage and become the successes that they are, and share some guidance on how the road ahead for you can be less rocky. What I've asked is for each of them to do is to take a minute to introduce themselves to you. So we're going to start in first name alphabetical order. So let's begin with Anna.
Hi, everybody. I am from Europe. I am Catalan. I've been in the United States for about 30 years. I work at a company called NetApp, and I see a lot of NetApp people here. Whoop. Even some guys joined. Hi, Mike, Mercedes, Sue, Edith. I'm so happy. I am the vice president of the global portfolio for NetApp. I've founded companies. I've founded 5 nonprofits, many stories. So probably we'll get into those later. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Okay, Ba, are you on?
Yes, I'm here.
There you are.
Hey, I'm Ba Minotti. I'm Brazilian, so I relate a lot with what we were just describing about having a voice and a strong accent. So I moved to San Francisco 4 years ago. I still see a lot of people having a hard time understanding me, but it's fine. I know I got to embrace my accent and to use my voice, whatever, like however it comes out. And I'm a VC. I have been in the investment world for the past decade. So I'm 31. I started when I was 20. And it has been like a journey going from private equity, real estate, to finally getting to venture capital, becoming an angel investor, like very active angel investor. And now I have also like a multi-family office. So I wear the VC hat, and I also wear the entrepreneur hat with this new endeavor that I have. And out of that, I'm leading and managing 5 venture funds right now with 250 million AUM. So it's very exciting to be in this industry. Founder and GP of a venture firm, I understand the responsibility that comes with that as well. And also like how exciting it is to open doors, like to see other women from other countries getting inspiration from another immigrant. So I'm excited to be here today, and I hope what we share inspires you all too.
Great, thank you very much. We'll go to Hannah.
Thank you so much, and thanks for including me on the panel. I was born in Denmark, in the town of the fairy tale author Hans Christian Andersen. And after a political and business career in Denmark, I bought a one-way ticket in 1990 and spent 4 years on the East Coast and came to Silicon Valley in 94. In 97, I started Elom. Elom is a supply chain management company. We started from the very scratch, and today we are working and shipping out of 19 locations globally, listed on the list of the largest women-owned companies in the nation. I've succeeded in growing the company and keeping it private. We are headquartered in Fremont, California, and work with very large corporations where we are managing both the physical supply chain and the financial supply chain and the technology supply chain. I'm very excited about what I'm doing, and I am committed to living a life of no regrets, taking full advantage of the opportunities. And Ba, I figure having an accent, they know who you are when you're on a conference call.
That's great. It's true. Thank you very much. Okay, and we'll turn it over to Padma, who obviously has the perfect last name for this session.
Great. Hi, everyone. I'm Padma Shri Warrior, Padma for short. It's amazing to see so many of you here. I see many friends. Hi, Annie, who I worked with before, and it's an honor to be with this panel. I think I was asked to say a few words about myself. I'm a mom, first and foremost. I love to paint. I love to read. I love cooking. I discovered actually during this shelter in place that I have a passion for that. I have been in the tech industry work-wise for a long time, almost close to 3 decades now. I'm an engineer by training. I grew up in India. I'm an immigrant as well. I probably have an accent that is trying to fade, but it's still there. I am now a founder of a company called Fable. Our mission is to help mental wellness around the world by encouraging people to read more and read together in groups. So I hope all of you will be part of Fable and we can read amazing stories together, maybe what Connie writes someday. And that's our mission. We are just closing this week our funding seed round. We closed very fast, so I'm very grateful for our investors. The first time raising money on Zoom, actually. It was a fascinating experience. Before this, I was CEO for an autonomous electric car company called NIO. It's a public company now, based out of China. Prior to that, I was Chief Technology and Strategy Officer at Cisco. Before that, I was at Motorola. I currently serve on the boards of Microsoft and Spotify. So I have extensive background in tech, all the way from being an entrepreneur to running very, very large companies and being a board member, and love to share my experiences and hear your experiences today.
Great, thank you very much. So the way that we decided to do this is that I've asked each of the amazing women on this panel to take the lead in a topic that we have advertised that we're going to be covering for you. I'll have each of them talk about it for a few minutes and have their colleagues pitch in and offer some additional advice. And then after those 4 topics are covered, I get to ask a question of the panelists, or maybe 2, depending on the timing, and then we'll take your questions. I am moderating the chat window, so feel free to interject and ask questions. I'll keep track of them as people are talking. And as it turns out, it was random who got back to me first about which topic they wanted to lead. So Padma is going to go first and talk about allies and advocates, why you need them, and what to look for. How big a deal is a mentor? And she's going to take the conversation from there. So please go ahead.
Great, thank you so much. Yeah, so as I was saying in my introduction, I grew up in India. I went to a pretty hardcore engineering school. There were very, very few women. I was one out of, I think there were 4 of us in a class of 250. So I think very quickly, very young in my career, I learned the importance of having a support network, people that are with you, that support you, that you call on when you are in trouble, when you want to share something. The 4 of us who were doing engineering at IIT in India were really that network for me. I would say the very first allied network. And after that, I came to the US to go to graduate school at Cornell, and the same thing in engineering school. There are very, very few women. So this is something I would say that's been important for me throughout my learning career and then my working career after that. So I think it is something we actively have to look for and form. I think taking the time to expand your network, because actually sometimes you never know who you would call on for help, right? I think making sure you have a quote unquote a list of people that you trust and that you can rely on. And that list can vary depending on the topic, right? There are people I reach out to as I was fundraising, for example. Most recently, I reach out to my friends in the VC world who are experienced at this. If I have a question on how to scale something, then I would reach out to somebody else. So the support network is critically important. And so I think to me, an ally is someone who you can use as a sounding board, who really has your interests first and foremost as they're advising you, who can look at things objectively and are not afraid to tell you that you need to change. I think sometimes it's the tough medicine that we need to hear. I think in my world, it's a lot of women, but there are also men in that network that I would absolutely count on and use as my sounding boards. So I think that's crucially important, especially as you're thinking through your career and your career growth. The other thing is about mentorship and advocacy. I think these things are different, right? The role an ally plays is literally that holding up the mirror in front of you and being there, as I said, but also making you look at yourself and question what you're doing, what you need to change. A mentor, I think, is somewhat different. A mentor is probably someone who's more experienced than you in what you've done. So they've sort of like taken that path before. And they can kind of speak from that experience of, here's how I did it. I faced this problem and you may want to try this. It's a different role than who an ally is. So I think when you select mentors or you look for mentors, you should, and I've done this, is usually look for someone who's sort of been down that path you want to go, or that you aspire to go down, and then therefore they can offer you that perspective. An advocate is yet, I think, the slightly more different. I think they really are sort of your agent. They will do the brags for you. They will speak on your behalf. And these are people that can be, it can be a simple thing like people that I use as my references, quote unquote, are people who are advocates on my behalf, right? Any job you apply for, people typically ask for references. And these could be people that truly worked with you, can tell you factually what you've done, but also can be your advocates. And so they advocate on your behalf. And so they are someone you want on your side, because all of us hate bragging about ourselves, especially women. And so it's always good to have those people that are our advocates that will speak on our behalf. So each one is slightly different. And I think each one plays a very, very important role. And it's important to have a list of people in each of these categories. And sometimes you may have the same person on both of these lists, and that's okay too. But I think the role, and if you're the advocate or you're the mentor or you're the ally, you have to realize you have a slightly different role to play as well.
So let's have everyone take a second as you're listening to some of these other women talk about this topic and write down a list. Do you have some candidates in each of those categories that you can think of off the top of your head? And this is homework, but you're the only one who's going to know that you did it. So fill that in before this day is over. And then if your list is not quite as full as you'd like, you have something to do. Anyone else on the panel?
I love what Padma was talking about, advocates. I've heard the word sponsor, and I think Padma is kind of the same concept. And sometimes you really need to have a good talk with them if you're about to present something large, to ask them to play a crucial role. So that they can be so incredibly powerful. Mm-hmm. I always ask for people that are asking, can you be my mentor? Would you be my sponsor?
In your eyes, and be careful.
Oops, someone has their microphone unmuted,
yeah.
So please mute it.
I think a mom talking to a kid.
We support you.
Anyway, yeah, we support you. Be careful, kids. Not to go to these mentors and sponsors with not knowing what to ask for, or just hoping that some divine intervention is going to just happen, or that they're there to guide you. You need to own your career. Typically, I would imagine Padma is a very busy lady. She has her own goals and stuff. So I would like to ask for people to formulate a little bit, why is it that they want to meet? It's not that it needs to be perfection, but go with a specific thing. Sometimes it's a 15-minute call, not a 30-minute, or don't place 1-hour phone calls. Like, hey, would you want to have a virtual coffee, right? Or whatever it is these days. But short and sweet, and prepare, I would say.
And I would definitely second that. Thank you, Anna. And just add that you should also think about paying it forward, right? And pulling somebody along with you. And do it both because it's the right thing to do, and we want the next generation of women and men growing up strong and taking over our values and build on them. But we also, you also learn from helping somebody else. And you really can make a big difference by doing so. So as you are reaching up, think about reaching to somebody who needs you, who doesn't necessarily look like you. The best companies look at saying to women leaders, or to all leaders, select 2 people who don't look like you and work with them.
So while you're talking on this point, Hannah, why don't we just go into your topic, which is communities and networks. They're similar concepts, but different roles. This seems like a natural pickup from what Padma just shared.
Yeah, that's it is very, very connected to that. And if I had to give everybody a take-home item, it would be very deliberate about your network and the communities you are in. think about it, and they play different roles throughout your lives. So everybody loves when things go well. And when things go well, you certainly need people who can help you leverage that and grow. But we all need people who can help us when things are bad. That's when, in my experience, the boards are out of, losing the support for the CEOs, where you have problems with all around you, and you really need your support network. So what I would encourage you to do is think about people who can be in your network that understand your premise. So when you're looking to get a mentor or somebody in your network, think about people who understand and respect your premise. You don't want to be like them. You want to be yourself. Add your core strength to the equation, but you also want to get their input and their insights. So one of the key things is have people who understand who you are, what your values are. And I'd encourage you, so community is a more coherent group of people who typically share values. But I'd encourage you to set up a network that also is very, very diverse. And when I say network, there are different types of intimacy or knowledge in that network. So there are people who are maybe very loosely affiliated, and you have shared business cards, and you know each other enough that you can recognize each other at networking events. But you also have the people who you're really, really close with. And you need some in all categories. So please think about being very intimately connected with a group of people who have your best interest at heart. In any relationship, there's give and take. And as you understand, I'm very much in the give. Many people go in and network, and their first inclination is take. My advice would be give before you take. You cannot always do that, but give. People will remember you for giving, for being a caring person who gives and care about them. And you can always later ask if there's something you need to get out of the relationship. But don't start by just asking for what you need. And it's a problem for women, by the way, that we lose credibility when we ask for what we need. So build your own credibility by giving first. And then I'd say, as you're deliberate about who you're accepting advice from, think about what fits your situation and your goals. So as you're looking at your goals, who has been in that situation and what did they add to that situation? So for instance, if you are in reading Jack Welch, well, you're probably not running General Electric, and you maybe have other values than Jack Welch. Doesn't mean you couldn't learn anything from him, but there might be others that are more relevant to your situation. And it's totally same when you select who to be in your network. And finally, I'd say it's great to have discussions with family, but unless your spouses or family are, head of the McKinsey leadership team or whatever, right? Take care about which advice you get from your spouses. They may be great people, they're the people you love, they're your family, but maybe they're just not business geniuses. So they're part of your network, they are important to set expectations with, but don't make them your chief consultants.
Okay. Anybody want to add to that? Okay, we're going to move on then. And I'm going to ask Ba to talk about access to capital and gender bias, tips and ideas for everything from pitching to answering ill-informed questions, which gets to the bias part.
Okay, let's see. I think that's a super important subject because it goes to what we were talking in terms of being prepared, like showing up ready to what you have in front of you, because I think most of founders, they miss the opportunity by just not really practicing before, like knowing exactly what they want to ask for. And that goes for any gender. But I think because of what I notice in women a lot is they ask less for the advisors on how to show up in these meetings, especially like first time founders. And then while the guys, they're like so afraid, and they show up, they show to their peers that they're like feeling that, and they start getting like all this advice, and they show up in front of the investor like are way more prepared because they went through those experiences before. It's like I think women a lot of times they're just so perfectionist, like they do things like so carefully, so well done, that can even burn out prior to the meeting with the investor, so they show up so nervous and like so attached to details that they forget about the content was the most important thing. They forget about like what they're really there for, and they're just like full of issues on their mind, like the monkey mind shows up a lot during those first time pitches, so I recommend first like calming down and like really understanding what you're showing up for. And before any meeting with investors, just expose yourself, like really go to get advice with people that are not family members. Like the family is not the best guide when you are raising funds, except if they're like in the industry and they really know what they're talking about. But most of the time that's not the case. And I would also avoid close friends because they also have a bias. So I would always go to people in the industry, and even like go out of the comfort zone, people that they're not going to be investors in your company, but they can offer like advice, and you're not losing a check by exposing you too much in the early days, So I think that's super important. I think going back like also to the network and connections, the more you talk to good advisors that really understand your industry, more you will refine your deck and your pitch, So do not get afraid of going to the first advisors because it's too far from what you want to present to an investor, because advisors are there for that. They will help you so much. And it can be the most simple thing from the visual side of a deck that you're just not seeing it because you're so focused like doing that, and can be a way more in depth, like financials and like real roadmap and how you are going to answer a few questions, but like that's very important to any investor, like looking at it, knowing like that you got the right guidance in the beginning. Let me see, in terms of challenges in this industry and what I've seen, I'm 3 times minority, right? Like I'm an immigrant, I'm a woman, and I'm a woman of color. So I think that's in Silicon Valley, I was very welcomed. I don't see all the barriers that most of people talk about, but probably because I'm from Brazil. So Brazil is a way more sexist, and it's a way more judgmental of your look and of what you potentially can deliver or not, So when I came to US, it was already like so driven and so bound and not taking like what people were expecting from me, that I was like just like a warrior, I'm not like a recruiter. I was just like ready to take whatever was in front of me and show that I was ready for the challenges. And I think that was important because I was not putting myself in this box of, oh, I'm a woman and I'm an immigrant and my accent and all that stuff. I was just like, I need to get this fund going. And it was my first venture fund. I wanted to be a VC. I didn't want to be doing angel investments by myself anymore. And it was extremely challenging. It was just post-Trump. So the fact that Trump was elected gave me so much fuel, like to move forward, like I was so offended. And I think now that we're in time of crisis, like when you have that level of anger and you transform in action, is so important, because it's not about just the person in front of you that is passing on you. It's about what you represent in that moment. And that goes for any founder, like whatever you are doing, there's a drive, there's a mission that will make you go through any challenge that you're facing. But you need to leave behind all those lies that you have in your mind, those limitations, So I think that's that's my advice, because I don't think all these challenges really exist aside of our own mind. When we take them out, we're able to achieve a way more than even what we expected from ourselves, you know? And I'm not saying it doesn't exist, like all the things we know exist. I just think like we create even more by believing on them, you know? And it worked for me, and I see working for a lot of people that advise and founders that I'm around and my portfolio companies. And I think that's important to have in mind. I don't know, Connie, anything else that?
Well, I was going to turn it over to your panelists. Who else wants
awesome.
to add on this? You've all gone through this process.
Yeah, no, I think those are great points. What Badger said, I was just saying, I'm just closing my round, and it moved really fast. I think everything she said is absolutely right. I think, in addition, I would say in the funding or in the capital worlds, what's really important is to speak from your strength of your domain strength. So I think when you're pitching, it's good to know what you're presenting, but also speak from the expertise you have in the industry. And we oftentimes forget that. We're so focused on the pitch and, here's my plan, this is what I'm starting. It's good to like occasionally step back and let the audience feel the expertise we've all built up to have the strength to start the company. And truly, most about the company you're starting than anyone else. And so I think that provides a lens of confidence. That is something that I think is very, very important. And I also want to talk a little bit about the community thing that Hannah was saying, if that's okay, Connie.
Of course.
I think the one thing we should remember about communities is we have an opportunity, actually, all of us, to belong to multiple communities, right? Because of the things that we do. For example, like I definitely belong to a community of women in tech. This is sort of like my primary community, but maybe you're also belong to a community of entrepreneurs. I belong to a community of executives who've been in tech. I belong to a community of board members. I belong to a community of moms. I think these are all communities, and they're all equally important, and sometimes we forget that. It's sort of like, I think of it as these intersecting circles. I belong to a community of Asian Americans. So all these things are important, and it's I think maybe another homework assignment is for us to really think about what are those intersecting circles and how do they intersect, and which ones play a bigger, you can't allocate enough time, equal time to all of them all the time, because then that's all you'll be doing. But then I think each of these become important at a moment in your life, and then you have that community to call upon. And I think that's so important when we think about communities.
Thanks, Padma. And I agree that you look at the intersections, but you also build your own network based on the communities, right? So the communities pre-exist and there's some structure. And I see some of the comments in the chat box. I would not just rely on everybody else building your network. You've got to be active in building your network based on the structures that are out there. The structures just allow you to meet other people and connect with them, but it's your network. So think about that. And one comment on the funding and women's strength in financial relationships is that women are not without strength, right? We decide who we do business with, and I don't think you should take it lightly. It's not just who wants you, it's who do you want. And over time, as I've interfaced with everybody, I've become very selective with who I want to do business with. And I think it's a much better situation where you are thinking deliberately about, am I aligned with these people? And can we actually have a productive relationship? And I'm telling the story about somebody who really rubbed me the wrong way with very discriminatory stuff. And I walked away from the deal, and they have over time lost about $20 million worth of business for me walking away. So, I want everybody to feel empowered to walk with your feet and be very deliberate about who you do business with.
What's that line? Revenge is a dish best served cold. Yeah. I just want to add one other thing before we go to our last topic from Anna, and that is, as somebody who's been on the receiving end of pitches, and I've been at Forbes, I've been at Bloomberg, I've been CNET, but many, many publications. And I hear pitches from men and women. They are very different in how they pitch news to reporters, especially a woman reporter. And I would just say this as a reminder. At the end of the day, every single reporter in the world has 63 to 70 characters to write the headline on your story. That is universal. That is not, Bloomberg or CNET. It's 63 to 70 characters. That is the length of a headline before, in Google News, for instance, it goes to ... If you can't summarize your business and your story in 63 to 70 characters, why would you leave it to someone else to do it for you? So I always tell people to tell me that. What is your business? Give it to me in a headline. And new and breakthrough and revolutionary are wasted characters in a headline, because if it's not new and revolutionary breakthrough, why are we even talking about it? Really get you to focus on the substance. So that's my little tip for the day. Okay, Anna, we're going to go to you, and you're going to talk about guidance for global entrepreneurs and thinking beyond the US.
Awesome, thank you. I am so enjoying this, listening to everybody. I see a thread here of prepare yourself, be selective, you're in charge, and all of this takes preparation. I love your story, Hannah, Padma, Umana family, of how you're so focused, right? And you're in charge. So I love that. Entrepreneurs outside of the US, I did it the other way around. I came to be an entrepreneur in the US, but I think the nonprofits that I founded, or even the startup that I had, that was able to go global. And today, more than ever, right, we have a digital transformation that's speeding up like a rocket and has placed us in a very even playing field. Like, everybody's on Zoom. You're not in the room watching for the cues, and so that to me means you can partner time zone wise with anybody around the world to help you think, to help you create more than ever. We, in my team, we have people I believe in 20 some countries where we are constantly working together, innovating together. But again, you need to be very deliberate. So working outside of the US may mean a few things. I'm going to talk about 2 examples. So one could be that you're a founder of a small company and you're ready to go global. That is not a small thing, right? That will mean, again, that you're going to prepare, that you're going to surround yourself with people that have done this. It's almost like Padma was talking. She is just now closing her VC round. I'm sure, she's a very accomplished professional, but she also had to learn how to do this and learn through this. So going global, same thing. It's a whole orchestration of events that need to happen. And there are several organizations out there that can help you understand this. I saw somebody posted a nonprofit that I started 10 years ago that has about 6,000 women aligned to it that are all doing business globally. It's called Women in Localization. So there's other forums that I would be happy to point people to if you want to ping me on LinkedIn. So that would be, how do you get out of the US? You want to be methodical. You want to be well prepared. It's a process. It's a project. It has its own learnings that a lot of people have done before, right? The other angle to this, and I'm sure there's many, many angles of working outside of the US or making it outside of the US, is that you need to reach out to these beautiful list of people here. I see people calling in from Russia, people calling in from Argentina, Chile, everywhere. They are incredible, right? They're better than us. They're equal than us. I'm sure that they can bring such different perspectives. And so who is the team that you're building? So leveraging that workforce is very, very important to achieve your dreams. Maybe they want to co-found something, right? I I see on the phone call, there's one of my co-founders of Women in Localization. She's from Slovakia. I am Catalan. We co-founded this organization. And for the last 11 years, we've talked weekly, you know, to build this machinery. So surround yourself, prepare yourself, bringing the global perspective, very important for your product, right? Especially if you want to start growing your product into one country. Maybe you test out Canada, maybe you test out, you know, Mexico as a neighboring, more known, easy to work with country. But that's where I would leave it. It's very possible, very doable. There's a lot of organizations that can mentor on this aspect as well.
Anyone else want to contribute there?
Yes, I just wanted to say I'm very active in Women's Business Enterprise National Council. I've been on the board for a while, and I'm heading up the global team. If anybody on the call is a woman-owned certified business, I'm happy to be a resource and pull them in the right direction with resources both within WeBank and the international organization WeConnect. So my company built out this network of 19 locations, and I want to say also to entrepreneurs on the line, it does require resources and quite a bit of investigation and research before you go into building a global network. So be very, again, deliberate and thoughtful about how you do it.
Connie, there's one other thing. Thank you, Hannah, for that I was thinking that I had jotted down before. There is a lot of organizations and boards and innovation happening around the world that we are behind in the US. So, and water treatment organizations in Africa, or, you know, how to treat a lot of different chemicals around the world. In another way of getting into this beyond the US is to actually support one of these nonprofits. There is the Tech Museum in San Jose, the Tech Interactive, has a whole pillar there dedicated to tech for global good, and I'm part of the board there. And every year they're choosing nonprofits that are doing incredible work around the world. South Africa for women's rights, Africa, Kenya, Sweden for water treatment plants, the UN. There's so many laureates there where you can participate and you can support some of these causes. So coming in through a nonprofit would be another way of learning what is it to go global, that you don't have to do it specifically through an enterprise or a corporation or startup, but you can do it through a nonprofit as well as a playground.
Okay, it seems like everyone is very interested in connecting on LinkedIn. So thank you all for putting in your links in. And I'm sure Denise and the folks at Silicon Valley Forum will be collecting a lot of those LinkedIn notices there and putting them together. If you have some questions, go ahead and put them in the chat. So I'm going to do what's called this lightning round, where I'm going to ask each of our panelists here to answer the same question. And the first one I want to start, so this is where you tell us a story, briefly, please. But what was something that you did wrong that you would tell people, if I had a do-over, this could have saved me? I mean, everyone learns from mistakes, but if I had a do-over, I would do this differently. So, Padma, you go first because you're on my screen first.
Yeah, I think for me, I wish I had the courage to take risks earlier in my career. I think I started my career as an engineer in the semiconductor industry at Motorola, and I was doing really well, and I kept getting promoted, and I became the chief technology officer. So I stayed in that industry for a very, very long time, and then I became the CTO for the corporation. So it's one of those things when you are afraid to disrupt everything because things are going well. I think the one thing I wish I had, if I could tell my younger self is I should have moved industries much faster, because I think you learn so much when you go. I mean, now I've built cars, I've built networks and data centers, I've built phones. Now I'm building a very large consumer platform, hopefully redefining social to be something much more meaningful than fake news. And so it's just very different. And I think I started to do that much later in my career, when I felt like, I was comfortable. I had already accomplished a bunch of things. While that's good in the sense that, I had made a name for myself. So I felt like, okay, the risk of, even if this fails is low, and I can take risks now. In a way, that's itself is a mistake. And I wish I had taken risks earlier. I don't know how much I would have learned more if I had done that faster. Of course, you can go back and rewrite history, but that I feel is a mistake that I have done. I think it's counterintuitive, right? We all think when you're doing well, don't mess with this. But I think that's when you probably should move, and move jobs, move companies, move industries, so you can expand. As I say, you think about like as a VC, VCs typically invest in a portfolio of companies. So as a person, you have to invest in yourself, in a portfolio of skills, and expand your portfolio. And that is something that I did not do, that I wish I had done. I think that would be a mistake I did.
Anna, you're up next on my screen.
Oh, I love what Padma's saying of counterintuitive, because sometimes you're walking such a fine line and so difficult, right? I think my mistake is I'm constantly oversubscribed and tired. I think I say yes to too many things. I want to achieve too many things. I have too many ideas. I want to spin up too many things. But it's fun. It's so fun, and I think probably fewer initiatives and deeper, and more mentoring inside of those orgs. Because at this point, I've founded 5 nonprofits, 1 company, and you just let it go at one point. I'm still very involved with each one of them, and it takes a lot of trust, and it's too many, it's too much. And so you can't really observe it without training the leadership and continue the value. And sometimes things go the wrong way, and it may be too late. So I'm thinking that maybe I just have too many ideas that people want to co-create, and it's just fun. That's counterintuitive, because I want to do them because I see the gaps, right? And at the same time, I'm a mom. I've had foster kids. I've moved countries. I've worked in different countries. And now I just hit my 50, and I'm like, okay, time to slow down, maybe. Yeah.
Okay. Hannah?
Yeah, I always tell people that entrepreneurs that I give advice to, always hire the best people. Just focus on getting the best possible team. Don't do any shortcuts. And sometimes, I don't take my own advice. Right. And so I think most business people will say it's all about relationships, it's about the people. And when I've seen that it didn't really feel right, but let me go ahead anyway, and I didn't listen to my gut, that is really where I make the mistakes. And so I've got a couple under the belt, and I continue to give myself advice still. And of course, the other thing is it's very easy to work in your company. It's much harder to work on your company. And so sometimes, I've really seen that now with COVID-19, because I'm running an essential business, meaning we've been open throughout, etc. And there's just been a slew of details and compliance management and risk management that needed to happen over the last months. And I've seen myself swing back into working in the company, which I was forced to do, and it was the right thing. And now I've got to swing back out and work on the company. And that's the hard transition each time, going back and forth. So a couple of times in the past I've worked too long in the company, but now I know that I need to swing back.
Okay, thank you. Ba?
On mine, I would say I was always too aggressive, and I regret. I think I could be listening and asking more. And I see now the same mistake coming from the other side. And I feel sorry because a lot of times, if you were just like really listening and paying attention and who's in front of you and asking more instead of just trying to show who you are and what you were doing and how amazing you were, you know, you were missing the opportunity of finding another way of working together. Because sometimes we're so focused, so focused on like what we want to get, and we're not seeing like who is around us, and maybe that person is not the right fit right now. But if there's a synergy, if you click, if there's something there, there's something else that will flourish out of that relationship. And I was always like such in a fast pace, so aggressive, like I would compensate my feminine side like by dressing well, but not by being feminine and not by listening. And I think that's something I would advise, especially women, like always embrace your femininity, like not just go, especially these days, because, and even like now when I'm hiring and when I'm advising after a pitch, especially after a pitch that I passed, I always offer this advice of embracing who you truly are and your feminine side, because we are being guided to be too aggressive these days. And we miss opportunities. Like there's women that I would like to hire, and they come to the negotiation like so tough, like so exhausting right away. I was like, calm down. Like, do you want to try to understand my side, and then I'll listen again to your side, or like your real version, and we see if we can do it together and make this happen? Or you were like, really, that's the only option you have and will be your way. And then they come a little bit more soft, and we end up to like a nice ending, you know, like we are able to work together. And I get that feedback from them. It's like, wow, that's refreshing, because I read all these things and I need to like show my terms that I think I need to show. And if I don't show for a woman like you, I'll be not presenting myself in the way I should. And it's exactly the opposite. It's really about paying attention. And that's like what the feminine is so strong. It's our gut. It's like really listening and feeling, and then more things will happen. That's my biggest regret. It was just like too fast, too aggressive, you know, and I still am, but way less, you know.
I'm going to go through the panelists one more time because we have time for another question. Same order that we started before, Padma. And the question is, what was the best piece of advice you got, and who gave it to you?
Great question. I think the best piece of advice I got was actually one of my mentors. So this was when I was working at Motorola. One of the projects, I was leading this project. I was CEO for this planned subsidiary at Motorola. They were going to spin off this company and set up a different company, and I was the CEO. I was very young in my career. I was probably like in my late 20s, and as soon as I was engaged in this program, within 6 months, I discovered the technology wasn't working and it was not going to work. So it was something that I had to go to the CEO of the corporation and let them know what they thought in research was working is actually incorrect, and it's never going to work, and we need to shut this whole thing down. And, you know, by doing so, obviously I was putting myself out of my job, and I had to lay off my whole team. But more importantly, I was going up against then a CTO of the company whose labs came up with this research. So it was sort of like their opinion versus ours, and it was a scientific opinion, so we had all this data. So I called my mentor and I went through all of my data. I think somebody was saying women usually tend to over-prepare. I was over-prepared. I had collected all the data because I knew I would be challenged. I presented everything and I said, okay, here's all this stuff that says it's never going to work. We need to shut this down. And he said to me, so what are you calling me for? So I said, pardon? I said, what are you calling me for? You already know what you need to do. Don't make this my problem. You just want me to give you permission to speak up, and you don't need that permission. You already know what the right thing to do is. The right thing to do is to set up a meeting with the CEO and go through this exact data and tell them it's not going to work. You don't need me to be going and telling you that's what you should do, and you do it because I said that's what you should do. I thought that was the best advice I ever got. Sometimes we know what we need to do, but we don't do it, or we don't have the confidence. So we want someone else to tell us to do that. So then we can say, you told me to do it. That's why I did it. So he just pushed me, and I was like, well, what if I get fired? He says, well, then you get fired. I mean, like, would you rather have the company risk this, or would you do the right thing? So I did, and turned out to be the best advice, because actually after that I got promoted to be the chief technology officer of the company, because it was such an important decision for the company. I would have, I think, really hesitated to have done that had he not bluntly. I think this is what I was saying in my opening. Sometimes you need people that will just hold up the mirror to you and tell you, like, have the courage to do the right thing. You're doing the right thing. But of course, after that, though, to his credit, he was my mentor. He was there through all the meetings to give me the air cover had I needed it. Luckily, I didn't need it, but I think that was true leadership. He not only pushed me out there, but he was there as a safety net in case I failed and in case I got into trouble. So I think that was very, very much great advice that I take near to my heart.
So we have a minute and a half left. Hannah, quickly, give me you don't need to do it in 63 characters. But give it to me.
So it's fun what Padma is saying, because I had the same experience with a mentor asking, what do you really want to do? And sometimes the best advice is just a question, right? And so where I got my inspiration from was really my dad, who was in concentration camp. He didn't get the opportunities when he was young. And when I was a teenager, I always heard, I wish I could have done this or that. And I promised myself that I was going to live life to the fullest. And that's why I live a life of no regrets.
That's wonderful. Ba, I see you there. Go ahead.
I would say process and discipline. Coming from Brazil, like, that's not something we normally do. Like, we don't plan, which, like, everything is just happening. So what I learned and changed my life as an entrepreneur was, like, processes for everything, which I don't think it's an issue here, but, like, really management of my time. So understanding, like, OKRs are a key thing for me. So, like, I understand my goal, I understand my quarterly goal, I do it in weeks, and I do it daily. And then I really achieve everything. And I think a lot of founders get really messy on that. So my advice would be process.
I call it plan your work your plan, and know that your plan can change at any time. All right, with that, we have 10 seconds left or so. Thank you everyone who joined me today. Thank you for our amazing panel of speakers and sharing their advice. Thank you people staying up late or early, depending on where you were in the world. And thank you for Silicon Valley Forum for hosting this and working to connect all of these amazing women. Stay safe, stay healthy, wear a mask. Thank you.
Thank you so much, everyone. We appreciate your support. Thank you. Have a good rest of your day.